I'm Sandra, and I'm just the professional your small business was looking for. But you didn't hire me because you didn't use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has professionals you can't find anywhere else, including those who aren't actively looking for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, like me.
In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you'll miss out on great candidates like Sandra. Start hiring professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
We have the cheapest tops here at St Andrews. They're gonna give us what we're longing for. It's Birmingham forever. Let's hear it from the stand. So come on, sing this song once more. We are the lads from Tilton. We'll support you till the end of the day.
Nicholas.
We're so happy.
Is that a cue? Is that a cue?
That's
No, it's
cute.
not. It's a storm. Hey, ladies and gents, it's 7:30 and it's a Monday night. Of course, this is what Monday nights are for. It's the Tilton Talk Show coming to you live across the airways tonight, and don't forget on Switch Radio tomorrow night as well. Of course, we're sponsored by Boyle Sports, the principal sponsor of Birmingham City Football Club, with our good friends at SAS Autos, Bawdsey Labour Club, and Garrison Coffee. Have I got it right this week, Chris?
You have?
Oh, yes. Introducing the one and only Mr. Natalie Peters.
Good evening.
And, of course, Mr. Robe.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
And shiny himself, Mr. Sheen.
Good evening, all.
Mrs. Brown. My good self. And, of course, the one and only Lee Clark, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Clark.
Who are you? Who are
Hi,
you? Who are
everyone.
you?
Who are you? Welcome, Lee.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
It's all right, mate. Actually, you're quite good looking, really, aren't you?
He's in real life.
It's amazing what these camera phones can do.
It's great to see you smiling. It's great to have you back in the company of Birmingham City fans as well, matey. And sorry it didn't work out, but to be honest with you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it didn't go the way I wanted it to. It didn't go the way the fans deserved or the way the club should be. It's a Premier League club and everything,
Absolutely.
but where it is, the facility, the support, the numbers, the people behind the scenes when I was there, even though majority of them aren't there now, in terms of the English administration who were there, who basically kept the club going in terms of trying to do the right things, because obviously we all know that we're in a bit of a financial black hole at the time.
Right.
But, I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I could turn the clock back and start again, and obviously know what I know now, do a few things differently, but I wouldn't turn the clock back in terms of would I make that choice again? Of course I would. It's the biggest club I've managed, and I wish I could have been more successful, but it wasn't to be. There was mitigating reasons, obviously something to do with myself as well. Didn't do as well as I wanted to, but also reasons why that, I was a little bit hamstrung at times as well.
Total and utter respect to you, gentlemen. Total and utter respect to you. What an opening statement. That's superb. Right, okay. We're gonna headlong into that most iconic moment in the world ever. In the world, right? Ever. Now we've had some as Birmingham City fans. Now me and Chris have been Chris has been going a lot longer than I have because he's a lot older. I've been going since 1973, and I can remember first beating the Villa, staying up against Notts County, relegations, promotions, Carling Cup final, Leyland Daft Cup final. You jumping into that crowd is right up there in those iconic moments. Now, if I'd have run that fast, I'd have died 3 times on the way down there, I promise you. What possessed you to just, when you went up, and I watched it so many times, honestly, and you were pointing, you were going, that's for you, it was for you, it was for you, and that was for you. It was brilliant, iconic, superb, nice one. Great moment.
No, I meant that it was for them, and I meant the fact that it would be achieved was because of the supporters. Those numbers that turned out, we didn't deserve those type of numbers to come to Mondas that year. We'd had a terrible run towards the end of the season, and it was it was just astonishing the numbers that turned out. The day was just completely weird. Woke up and. Usually you've got, as soon as you wake up on the morning of the game, it's there hitting you. I felt quite relaxed, even though, I knew the magnitude of the game. And then when the players went out to warm up, when it's an away game, it's a difficult time as a manager, because when at home, you've got your own office. You can go and sit and watch the TV. If there's a live game on, you can go and watch that and try and take your mind off the game until the players come back into the dressing room and you do your final bits and pieces. But in a away game, obviously, you haven't got your office. You're just sitting in the dressing room. And I usually have my phone off and before a couple of hours before the game. But this day, I didn't. And I remember just sitting in the dressing room on my own, quite lonely. Quiet moment, and I just sent my family a text to say thank you for the support. It's been a tough time. You have been terrific. I've give everything. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I know you'll be there waiting. And I switched my phone off and then got ready for the game. And even at 2-0, I felt we playing some decent stuff, and they had 2 breakaway chances. And I just turned to Malcolm Crosby and Richard Beale and Steve Watson and said, we'll get the result. It all depends what's going to happen with Doncaster's result. But I just felt we would. It was, even though the game, we were running out of time and we're 2-0 down and staring into the abyss. I don't know if you call it craziness on my part, but I just felt we did. And when we got the equaliser and then the whistle went, it was just all the emotion that had come through. Because to be honest with you, leading up to the game, the thoughts of the club going down, that totally consumed me, in terms of, I wasn't bothered about my own personal position or reputation. I was bothered about what was going to happen to the club and what was happening to the players and the supporters. That's all that mattered to me. Nothing else was of importance to us. So what would
have actually happened, Lee? Have you been given any specific ideas about what would have happened had it turned out for the worst that day? It's
difficult to say. I was on record as saying when I'd done the press, which lasted for hours after the game, that the club could have went into Armageddon in terms of dropping into the League One and the financial position of the club as well. So, it doesn't bear thinking about. And that's why that emotion came out. And it was just me just saying thank you to the supporters for just being unbelievable that day. And whenever you talk about fans giving you that backing through thick and thin, that was an unbelievable example of the supporters backing us. Even at 2-0, the noise that was coming from the way end, the continuous singing, that all week, which you'd obviously, if you were in amongst the fans, you might have heard 1 or 2 people who were disenchanted, of course, but in terms of the general noise of the support, it got louder and louder, and it just, that was me just saying, these players on the pitch, or the ones on the pitch doing it, but yous were just as important and played as such a huge part, and that was just phenomenal.
Can you see them good?
Wow. Whenever anyone mentions yourself, Lee, to any of our fans, the first thing we think of is passion. Passion and desire, and if you could kick the ball yourself, obviously, and run on the pitch again. Watching you from in the stands, I could see it from a mile off. You was kicking every ball, weren't you, from the dugout?
Yeah, it was. Listen, it was tough, and
you were kicking the advertisement boards as well.
Yeah, that was the night. That was the night at Burnley. I was doing a good impression of me good pal Tamuri there. Well, what happened that night? I think I went upstairs on the Saturday game before, and we'd got a positive result. So I thought I'll go back upstairs and watch the game from behind the dugout upstairs, which in an ideal world, I'd like to do that every game, because you get a much better viewpoint higher up than you do when you're standing at ground level, and you see so many different things. And even especially if I used to sit down in the dugout, which I very rarely did at St Andrews, you were like looking actually along, all you could see was like the players' feet, and you were looking above. So it was, so I thought I'll go back upstairs, and I just felt, we ended up being 3-1 down in the end, and we got the 2 late goals by Kiko, but we had some terrible refereeing decisions in the game, and I was sitting with the referee assessor next to us, and he was agreeing with everything the referee was doing, and there was some of the most diabolical decisions, and I was like, what chance you got when the assessor who's sitting up here, I was actually agreeing with the poor decisions that the man his assessing's making. I got wound up upstairs, so when I went downstairs, I had a pop at the 4th official, and then obviously we got those 2 late goals, and that was my, I was a bit peed off, and that was me, getting the frustrations out of what I felt we'd been dealt a really poor hand by the officials that night, you know. And
what damage did you do to yourself?
Yeah.
Pardon?
What damage did you do to yourself?
I done nothing, but I just bought myself a lovely pair of brand new shoes that were ruined. So when I got to them as well, and I take a lot of pride in me shoes and stuff like that. So I was absolutely devastated when I got to them and they were scuffed a bit.
Well, not even a bruise.
No.
Who would you say was your best signing for us as the manager? Who would you say was the best player you signed?
Well, there was lots of loan signings. There was obviously a lot of the youngsters who were brought through. I mean, if you're talking for what they went on to achieve for the club and what the cost, you know, Paul Robinson was always a pound for pound, a big signing for us. We lacked a lead. We lacked a leader. I think he came in just training with us initially, then a little bit of a trial, and within a couple of days, I was ready to take him. I knew the leadership and the example he could be to the team. He's never seen a die attitude. He's obviously ability. He played in the Premier League, but his infectiousness, how he trained, how he prepped for the game. He was, you know, he was probably pound for pound the best one because we got him for free, and he stayed at the club and became a great servant for them and a great leader. So obviously there was. I mean, that season that led up to the Bolton fixture, if you remember, our first group of loan signings in the first half of the season were doing terrifically well. And then we drew that game in between Christmas Day and New Year's Day to home to Barnsley at St Andrews. And I remember being in the office after the game, and I think we're just a couple of points out the playoff positions, and we were planning on, you know, we started planning on the second half of the season, maybe make 1-2 additions. To the squad and kick on and give ourselves a chance of, you know, outside chance and an unexpected chance of getting into the playoffs because no one gave a real opportunity because of our situation. I remember getting a phone call off Julia Shelton. Well, I actually got 5 in the space of about half an hour from her to say, this club wants that player back. They all had recall options in the loan deals for 1 week in January, and they all called them all back.
Just on that.
Lingard, was that Lingard, Dan Burn and Kyle
Bartley, Jesse Lingard. Who else did we have? Aaron McLean. Was one other. So we had to then go back into the loan market, and the lads I tried to replace them with weren't as effective in the second half of the season as the lads had been in the first half. Talented players like they were, Emir Hughes and Albert Rusnak, and the couple of Man U boys didn't hit it off at all. They didn't produce the level of performance. You know, Taylor Blackett and people like that just weren't up to the level. And
did that surprise you, Lee? Did that surprise you when you saw the Man United lads come in and they weren't quite? Were you a little bit, downhearted a little bit?
I was. Not in terms of that. It didn't happen, because when you get loan players, it can happen like that. You know, you have some that are. The key for me when you get loan players, and which we tried to do, was they had to come with the mindset that they were like a Birmingham City player.
Yeah. And
the ones who failed inadvertently always remembered that, oh, well, I'm just at Birmingham as a loan and my parent club's club X, Y, or Z. And they didn't put themselves into that mentality. Whereas
they didn't embrace it.
The first group of lads, the Kyle Bartleys and Dan Burns, they were absolutely gutted that when they were having to leave. One, because they probably knew they weren't going to go back to their clubs and play, but two, they'd loved the place, they'd loved the club, the size of it, the facilities, the support. They knew if we could have kept everyone together, and so
the game. I was going to say, Lee, the game I remember from around that time, it was around. You mentioned just around Christmas. Do you remember the Bournemouth away game? Obviously, bearing in mind Bournemouth went on to obviously basically not barely lose a game.
Did we win 2-0, didn't we?
But we looked like a proper team. And then, as you said, Bartley goes back, Byrne goes back, Lingard goes back. I think we had a couple of injuries, and he basically had to rebuild half a team in the space of a few weeks. So when people moan about.
Quick question.
In the loan signings, just in the second half of the season, couldn't replicate what the lads in the first half of the season done.
Yeah.
Quick question, Lee. Do you then think that the loan market is quite destructive to the game?
It can be, but when you were in our position, it was a lifesaver. because I wouldn't have been able to get players. I wouldn't have been able to get any new players in. You know, I wouldn't have been allowed to try and enhance the squad. How
come we allowed that clawback clause in the contract to loan them? You know, if you're going to loan somebody, you want them for the season.
Because that was the only way sometimes you could get the deal over the line. They're in control. The parent clubs, the big boys are in control.
You know, as fans, like, we don't get involved in all of this every day, so it's nice to get a perspective on it. So it must have kind of like wiped all the rest of the team's smiles off their faces as well when all these lads went back.
Yeah, it was extremely tough. And if you remember as well, that season, I lost the two best fullbacks in the league. Stephen Carr, good pal of mine and next teammate, who was my captain. He never played a league game for us with his injury.
Yeah,
David Murphy played 2 games for us. We beat Millwall 4-0 and we beat Chef Wed 4-1, or reverse results. We scored 8, if you remember. Tuesday. Jesse scored the 4 in his debut, and then we played Millwall. They were the only 2 games David Murphy started that season for us. So I was going into the, you know, people don't really often mention that I had the best left back and best right back outside the Premier League.
Yeah,
one played 2 games.
Kick, didn't they?
Yeah, one played 2 games for us and one played 0.
It wasn't just them 2 as well, to be fair, of injury. You had, I know Keith Fay, whatever problems he had, he barely featured for you. Marlon King, I think, did his knee within a few months. But it wasn't just them. You're talking there, and you're talking about nearly half a dozen established championship players. You can't even barely get on the field. And of course, it makes an impact, especially when you've got no money to replace them with as well. I mean, you mentioned obviously, remember that season as well, just after the Christmas period, you got rid of the 2 coaches you had, Terry Mack and was it Derek Fazackerley? Do you ever think at that point that you could have maybe got somebody because obviously you replaced them with Alan Thompson and Steve Watson, who you knew anyway. Do you ever look back and think maybe
Alan wasn't really a replacement. Alan came in because I promoted Richard Beale from under 23 manager to first team coach, and Steve became assistant manager. So Alan took the under 23 role. So, and I was always a big believer in giving everyone in the academy, not just players, coaches as well, a pathway into the first team. So for all the players I give debuts to from the club, I wanted to show the staff that were there as well, who I respected a hell of a lot, because I used to spend, a lot of time at night times sitting behind after the first team training sessions had finished in my office and going to watch the academy boys train, not just to watch the players, to watch the coaches. And did you ever think though, maybe at that point we did start to struggle of getting someone in completely fresh from the outside, just have a fresh set of eyes on it? Well, first of all, you said that I got rid of Terry and Derek. It was like a mutual decision. They were older and they were a bit, Terry was away from his family quite a bit then, in a position where, there was a little bit of flack flying around at the time. And so we just decided to freshen things up. I really liked Bealey from the first time I met him. I thought he was a terrific coach and really loyal. Steve was obviously part of me setup anyway, so promoted him. And then there was 1 or 2 other positions. So when Alan came in, he needed a bit of help. And Carl Hooper was a young coach in the academy who I moved up from his position as, I think he was an under 8-9 coach then, and he came in as an assistant under 23 coach. So, yeah, listen, but I had Malcolm Crosby around. Like, I brought Malcolm in for the last 4 or 5 games. Malcolm was my head of recruitment. Malcolm had managed in an FA Cup final, been a manager, coach, done all the jobs. So decided to use that. In hindsight, looking back, probably myself, Derek and Terry should have sat down for a longer period. We made the decision too quickly, probably in the heat of the moment after a game on the Saturday when we made the decision on the Sunday. Thrashed everything out a bit more openly and just sat tight till the end of the season, because no doubt they were a huge help to us. They've been part of the success that had achieved it to us.
A quick question: How much control did you have on players coming in and going out?
I had a lot of control. But when you mean control in terms of did I pick them? Yes, but did I have control in terms of the finances? You were restricted. For example, a story is a player called Ashley Westwood, who's now with Burnley, a central midfield player who went to Villa in the end. But my first summer as
That's twice you've sworn today, by the way.
Pardon?
That's twice you've sworn today.
You can't say that B word.
All right, I'll not. And so he was at Crewe Alexandra at the time, and Swansea City were in the Premier League, and Malcolm had a good relationship with the head of recruitment at Swansea at the time. And they got on the phone to us and said, look, we're going to sign the boy Ashley Westwood from Crewe, but we don't believe he's ready for the Premier League yet. We'd like to get him into the Championship. Would you be interested? And whatever they were paying him a Premier League wage and offered him to us for $5,000 a week. And we thought, terrific deal. I liked him. I knew a lot about him. I thought he could have been a good player for us in the Championship on a season-long loan. And for those figures, he fitted into the budget really well. So when I spoke to the mob in Hong Kong to try and
That's quality.
To try and sort the deal out, I got the response that there was no funds available, and then half an hour later I got asked the question by the same people, would I be interested in taking Aurelien Gomez and Jermaine Jenas on loan from Tottenham? And they were obviously going to cost a lot more than the £5,000 a week Ashley Westwood was going to cost. The reason Ashley Westwood wasn't at no-go because they didn't know of him because he was from the lower leagues. Yeah. But they knew these two players, even though they were coming to the end of that time at their football club. Especially Jermaine. I'd played with Jermaine and picked up a few injuries, and which curtailed. But I didn't need Aurelien Gomez. I had Jack Butland, who I was going to give his Championship debut to. Why did I want to bring an experienced goalkeeper? So the response to that was, well, just bring him in as your number two. And my response back was, how am I going to keep Aurelien Gomez happy as number two at Birmingham? That's why he's kicking off at Tottenham. So that just showed you that showed you when I was trying to deal in the transfer market, some of the hurdles I was coming up against.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes what you have to deal with. If those owners, they can't get a big name in, they don't know someone, and and he's not like a high profile name like Ashley Westwood wasn't at the time. But we knew for a fact that I'd watched him and I knew he was going to be a talented player. And he certainly would have made us a better team than we were then. We couldn't do it, but we could then 25, 30 minutes later go and pay even like probably quadruple the money I was going to do for Westwood to get those two lads on loan from Spurs. That followed the pattern of every Friday getting a fax from Hong Kong with the team that they wanted us to pick. So I used to have a lot of fun putting that in the shredder.
Crazy man. Okay, I've got something really important to read out now. If we could just have a minute and a half of hushty. Lovely Brenda Brown sent me a message a little bit earlier and has asked me to read this out. Please read and share this update on Tommy Plant's funeral. Tommy was a young lad who sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago. Hi everyone, if you haven't already seen our previous post, we are trying to arrange as many cars as possible, modified and not, to follow the funeral cars and make as much noise as we can for Tommy on his final journey this Thursday, the 22nd. If you can make it, please arrive at 11 a.m. at Moneyhall Church Car Park, B30 3PS. There will be a bus arriving at 11:30, which will be our cue to start following. So please do not be late or block the roads. There is 2 huge car parks at the church. Myself and Vinny will make sure we are the first ones there to greet everyone and to answer any further questions. But please remain in your vehicles to comply with COVID rules. On the journey, please feel free to pop, bang, honk your horn as much as you wish, but I'm sure it goes without saying, no burnouts allowed and drive sensible at all times. Unfortunately, due to COVID rules, we will not be able to enter the cemetery. So once we arrive at Lodge Hill, we will continue past. Just continue to follow the shark car and make as much noise as we can for our final goodbye. If you're able to make it, please send us a message so we can figure out numbers, as we also have a small surprise for Tommy and the Plant family. We need all your help. Thank you. With all our love, GLA Autos Limited. There you go. Tommy Plant.
Yeah.
Always
do,
incredibly sad when these things happen, you know, and especially when it's a young child like that. It's such a young age. Got like the goosebumps are all over me, mate. Honestly, I promise you.
So tragic.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time on that one, gents.
No problem, mate. No problem.
Right, got lots and lots coming in on the shout box. There's a couple here. Gaynor Robinson, Lee, you're a really nice guy. I had the pleasure of meeting you at one of the Birmingham City Disabled Xmas parties. Graham Haynes wants to know, is Lee back on Ziggich's Christmas card list? Top bloke Lee. Yeah, man. There's so many. There's hundreds and hundreds of comments coming in. Right, okay, always a blue forever, a blue little man, rest in peace, keep right on, Blues players, first pump from us all. Right, there's another question that's been burning me all week. Now, I want everybody's view on this, right, because I'm not really a controversial character, right? I'll tell you what I do, I'll put it straight. Taking the knee before a football game. Taking the knee before a football game. Ronnie, I love you. Vic Singh, I love you. You know what? There's so many lovely people. I don't care what your colour is, but I don't get why we are asking footballers to go down on one knee. I've got my original 1990 shirt in there. Like, kick racism out of football. I'm not a racist. I don't care what colour your skin is.
Well,
I don't care. But what I don't want is I tell you what I do, right? The second that comes on a live game, I turn around. There you go.
Well, I think my ex-teammate and friend of mine, Les Ferdinand, said the right things when his club was accused of in one of the first live games of the new season when they didn't take the knee. I think was it against you guys? No,
Coventry. It wasn't. It was Coventry and
Coventry at St Andrews, was it?
Yeah.
And so Les come out and said, you know, that was good. It emphasised it at the start of the campaign, but actions have to speak louder than words, and there has to be things done for it. Taking the knee isn't enough, and isn't making the impact that it should be now. So you know, there has to be a real surge from everybody, and like you rightly said, you know, thinking that you've done enough because you take the knee before a football game. It's not even scratching the surface. There's far more to be done than that. And, you know, there's been too much made of it, whether clubs do it or whether they don't. It's getting stronger actions done and you know, just educating people. And I can't believe we're in 2020 and this is getting out of control like this.
It goes beyond football, doesn't it?
It does, and it's never come into the equation for me in terms of anything, in terms of me friends, me teammates, the players I've signed and etc. It just doesn't even come into me thinking one little bit at all.
Did you experience much of it as a player?
One second, Paul. There's lots of comments coming in on this, and Ray's just come up. The problem, Nick, is racism is out there. It needs more than the knee. Forget the knee, right? Let's do something really positive about it, right? We're a multicultural city. We have Indians, Sikhs, blacks, Muslims, English people. God, when we're owned by bloody Chinese, for Christ's sake. I mean, wow, no, it just makes me so mad that you know, you know what? I've said too much already, probably. Sorry, Paul. Crack on.
No, I was just going to say, Lee, when in your playing days, did you experience much on the, you know, in any games that you played in? I know not you personally, but obviously any of your teammates.
No, there was just one towards the end. There was an incident with an ex-teammate of mine, Emre, the little Turkish midfield player.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah,
I remember it.
I think it was an incident at Everton, which went through all the FA channels, and he got found not guilty. But you know, there was a reaction from one of our opponents that would be very strange if that was the case. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I would just think it would be so small-minded for that to happen. And you know, it's when I was growing up watching the football in the 80s, and it was some really poor things happening then.
It was horrible.
People like John Barnes and people like that. some of the things that were going on. It was just, I don't get it. Honestly, I cannot work it out. I cannot get it through my head why people would be like that in any walk of life. So I don't get it at all, you know.
But I can tell you now, Lee, every single one of our black players I revere. If you've got that badge on your shirt, mate, that's all I care about. I don't care about anything else. It's a badge. You play for the badge. We'll remember the name.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think forget about, you know, your allegiance to your football club. I think, like you've just said, you're living in a city that's so multicultural.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, you see people on the street. It's not an issue. It's that, you know, everyone's the same as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Lee, obviously you've worked inside football, and there's been obviously a lot of there's been a lot of claims in the past where they've said there's been institutional racism, where obviously maybe black or ethnic minority players haven't had coaching opportunities, or even opportunities higher up at clubs in terms of boardroom level, management level. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed any inherent sort of discrimination?
I've got to say, probably ignorantly no, but then when it gets pointed out to you and you look at it, you know, the diversity of boardrooms, or, you know, select committees of, you know, the different governing bodies, stakeholders in the game, and you see that there's not a great ratio, is there? I think what we cannot push is that, you know, sometimes it goes the other way when they say, well, we don't get a chance at a high level. But, you know, it doesn't matter what level. You've got to give them chances. And just like any other coach or manager, majority of them have to start at the bottom. There's only a select few who get given that really big job at the first job of their career, isn't it? So the rest of the guys really have to, you know, get that experience in the lower leagues, and hoping that they can try and catch someone's eye with the work they do at clubs lower down, you know, and get that chance. I mean, it was a spell of about 7, 8, 9 years ago where it was going around that a British coach, whether it be white or black or whatever, was only going to get a job in the Premier League if they got a team promoted into the Premier League, because it seemed to be that, you know, the end thing at that time was to go for a foreign manager. So the British lads were thinking, you know, the way we're going to have to be a Premier League manager is by taking a team up. Now, you know, that's changed as well, because, you know, there's clubs took chances there now. But there's not going to be many Mikel Artetas out there where their first job's going to be in Arsenal. You're going to have to start maybe at League 2, at League 1. And it will be difficult, you know, when you go down to them levels. Certainly with what you've experienced, if you played at the top level, is completely different. But if you can show people in different ways that you can manage, you know, an ex-player of mine at Huddersfield, Michael Flynn, now manager at Newport, doing a fantastic job. Yeah, absolutely brilliant job at Newport on very limited resources. A big surprise for me is an ex-teammate of mine, Tommy Wright, who'd done a brilliant job up in Scotland at St Johnson for many years on a ridiculously low budget. Won the cup for them 3 years ago. You know, in a league that's dominated by the two big boys and potentially Aberdeen. You know, so you've just got to make sure that you get down there and you catch the attention. You know, you've got to realise when you get to that level, it's very difficult where you'll pick up a high win percentage, or you'll do this with a player, you'll do that or whatever. And, you know, because you're dealing in a far different environment, you know.
I think that, I'd like to think that, obviously, once fans can go back into grounds, that these low lives who do revert to racism, well, hopefully it'll take a back seat in their mind, because they'll just be that grateful to be back at the football again, surely.
I totally hope and agree with you. I think that would be a real positive to take from this negative at the moment of not being able to get fans into stadiums. Because I think what you will get now with supporters and what's happened with football, the 2 or 3 positives that are coming out of this awful pandemic that we're in and we've been in, is one, the football world's had to come into the real world, with the exception of the Premier League. The teams outside of the Premier League are having to come into the real world in terms of where we are financially. So, you know, the clubs outside of the Premier League and potentially a Championship, certainly League One and League Two. Realism's coming into the wages and the salary brackets at that level, and the agents are having to become more realistic. But also, as you say, the realism for the supporters, because they've missed it. I've got to say, I don't know how I would have coped as a player or even a manager. The adrenaline rush, that's why I went into management, because once I knew my time was finished as a player, that adrenaline rush that I'd had from all my life every Saturday afternoon or whenever the game kicked off, how to replace that is you know, and it would, I don't know how I could have handled playing in a real competitive game, i.e. a Premier League game or an FA Cup tie, and there's nobody in the ground. I've got to say, I don't know how I would be able to do it. Not that I wouldn't be professional, just I'd love that adrenaline rush of playing in front of the supporters. That was the buzz.
I'm going to turn that on its head. I'm going to turn that on its head, right? Do you know what? It's exactly the same for us as supporters in reverse. Really, really is. It's just watching the game on Saturday. Like somebody said, every 10 minutes, I just, every 10 minutes or so, just spurt out the crowd singing "Keep Right On" over the speaker, over the tannoys, And this one from Anthony Garvey is not blues related, but a really interesting question. How good was Gazza at Newcastle, and was he the best player you ever played with?
Paul was, for me, after 1990 World Cup and before the FA Cup final when he done his knee, before he was meant to go to Lazio originally the first time, was on the verge of becoming the best player in the world.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. That injury scuppered so many things for him. An example of how good he was at Newcastle, he broke into the team as an 18-year-old. And one of his first games was against a real tough midfield at Manchester United of Brian Robson, who was the current England captain at the time. And Remy Moses, who was a really tough player.
Was that when he patted Remy? Was that when he passed Remy Moses' afro after going past him?
Yeah, and he absolutely obliterated Brian Robson and Remy Moses in that game, and I think that put him on the map. And it was his character as well. He wasn't just such an unbelievable player; it was his infectious character. I mean, being around him, you couldn't relax. Later on, got a chance to be alongside him when I got in the England squad with him at Le Tournoi as well. And, he got older, but he hadn't got any more sensible. In fact, he'd probably got crazier. So, he just a special lad who was very generous, an unbelievable talent, who I wish, towards the end of his career and when it finished, hadn't happened what had happened, because surely he had something to give back to football in terms of even coaching youngsters or being an example of, demonstrating techniques, passing techniques, free kicks, this dribbling skills would have been unbelievable. And I'm totally convinced that day in the cup final changed everything. He still went on to do brilliant things. He still loved in Lazio and in Rome. He's adored up in Scotland. Wow. I mean, Glasgow Rangers, he's just the god up there. I mean, and, wherever he's been, if you speak to everybody, I mean, you listen to Gareth Southgate last week during the international duty when there was quotes that Mr. Grealish was going to be the current group. Gaza was the current group. Gaza, and even Gareth Southgate says you're totally unfair, you're unjust. Gareth Southgate said, I played with Paul Gascoigne. You cannot compare any England international to him, because he was one of the world's best. That day, that World Cup in 1990, he was taking on all comers.
World Cup,
96 as well, the Euro 96, that goal against Scotland. I mean, that is probably my favourite England moment in my life so far.
And you can probably see in 1996 his star was waving a bit. He wasn't the Paul of 6 years ago because of various different things in his career, but he was still phenomenal, and that was the difference.
Just on someone
from John Donohoe. I sent Lee a thank you card when he took over at Blackpool because I loved his passion. And the stick he took was shocking at Blues. But listen to how he's explained things just now. I said at the time, the loans blew our season. Bless Tommy and his family. Keep right on.
Just on,
We've got a few questions from our fans, Lou, that I'll put
No,
out
you
there
haven't,
in the
Paul. No, you
is that
haven't. You've
okay?
got 57.
I'm not going to ask you 57. I'm going to pick a few out. So Craig Courtney's asking, this is a tough one for you, actually, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in terms of fans, who is more passionate, Brummies or Geordies?
No,
it's a good question.
You watch him go blank. Watch him go black now, and I lose his connection all of a sudden.
Come on, Lee, you look a bit nervous.
It's very similar. What I would say because of what's happened over such a long period of time for the Blues fans, it's been a tough time, and they've never wavered in terms of the support of the team. Yeah, I think it's so very similar. That's why, hey, listen. And I've never been frightened to admit this. The day I lost my job, when Julia Shelton, asked us to come down to the stadium, I shed many tears when I took that letter because I was losing the job I loved being in. Was it tough? It was very, very tough, but I loved it. I was hoping I was going to be the man to be able to turn it around and get the club where it should be and where the fans deserve to be. So when I lost that job, and that's the passion I had for it. And I'm a black and white, and I love that club as well. But when I was at Birmingham City, that was a tough 24 hours. When I left that position, and I'm not ashamed to say that I shed tears. When that decision was made, and it was a real tough time.
Was it tough to play for Sunderland as well?
Yeah.
Do you know what? It was. I was just one of them lads.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my assets. I just give everything.
Yeah.
I give everything in what I do. And if it hasn't been good enough, as long as I can look myself in the mirror and say, I've tried to give everything there for whoever you are. And I went there. I never got any stick off the Newcastle fans. I used to go back and watch them quite regular. Still lived in the city. And the good thing for me, I hit the ground running as a Sunderland player. The 2 years I was there, I got Player of the Year. And so, it was just doing the job. The manager convinced us, Peter Reid. He played a big part in us going to the club. So, and we had 2 great years. We had some great players. I played with some great lads, great camaraderie, and and you move on.
You know what? 1973. Have a guess what my first game was?
FA Cup final.
Nope, Birmingham City versus Newcastle.
Was it at St Andrews?
At St Andrews, yeah.
Was that 1893?
So,
sorry.
A few people
Sorry,
as well, Lee, are mentioning a few people as well are asking the question about a certain player urinating in your fish pond in your back garden.
Yeah, this is an absolute belt, isn't it? This was doing the social media rumour mill on one of the times where Ravel didn't start one of the games. He was on the bench, I think, for a game or two. And I wasn't on social media, but the media team and my son got to show us the message. And apparently I'd had a party back at my house and invited all the players. And I caught Ravel Morrison urinating in my fish pond in my garden. 1, I didn't have a fish pond. 2, I had great family life down there. My family came and lived with us in Birmingham. I made great friends and where I lived, so we had a great social time. But never, and my staff used to come to the house with our partners regular for a bite to eat and a drink, but never once did the players turn up, and certainly that was never the case. So
just unravel
though. Fish was a lie then.
Just on Ravel though. We're talking about Gaza a few minutes ago. Was Ravel similar to Gaza in a way in terms of how you had to obviously deal with him as a person?
Well, there's a famous story, isn't there, where the team had been in before they came out onto the grass. They'd been in the gym doing their strength and conditioning with Nick Davis, and the strength and conditioning sports scientist guy who was different class for me. And they were in there, and as they came out onto the grass to do the warm up to get ready for the main session, he just pointed out that Rav hadn't made it into the gym, and then Rav come running past us. So as he came past, I just said, Rav, you need to go in the gym and do your strength and conditioning before you come out. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm not allowed to train. I says, well, you are, but you have to go and do your half an hour session in there first, so you'll miss some of the ball session. So he decided to say he was going in, and he was going to speak to his agent and all that. So he stormed off. We got on with the session. And when I went back into the training ground and went upstairs, my PA Rita, she pointed out that Rav was already in my office waiting for us. So when I went in, he had his sad puppy dog eyes on, and his head was down, and he apologised. So when I just tried to explain what it was for, and what he basically explained was he wasn't very good at the weight circuit, and he used to get embarrassed doing it in front of the players. And I says, well, explain that to me and the staff, and we'll do an individual program. We're not here to embarrass people. We want you to improve in all aspects of being a footballer, and that's not just with the ball. Because if I'd have said there was a training session with the ball and it lasted 5 hours, Rav would have been there the whole 5 hours.
Yeah.
So when he was in my office and I was trying to explain to him, the talent he had, and I said, listen, you're probably the best player I've seen, and the one few current midfield players in the game who's as good as Gaza. And I seen him look at us quite blank, and he said to us, who's Gaza? So then I had to say, then I was taking it back. So I had to say Paul Gascoigne, and he says, yes, Gaffer, but who's Paul Gascoigne?
Joking.
And then another example of Rav, and he was harmless. He did get himself into trouble. Did he mix with the right people off the field from where he was from? Probably not.
Hiring for your small business? If you're not looking for professionals on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. That's like looking for your car keys in a fish tank. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So start looking in the right place. With LinkedIn, you can hire professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Were they good for his career? No. I see him. It breaks me heart when I see him going to some of these clubs. He's become a journeyman when you see the ability he has. If you remember, we played Middlesbrough when your current manager, Aitor Karanka, was manager of Middlesbrough. We played them in a Friday night game.
Yeah.
At St Andrews, live on Sky.
Yeah.
So we trained at Wast Hills on the Thursday before the game. We'd done some tactical work. It wasn't a heavy session because we wanted the team to be fresh for the Friday. And I remember going into the staff changing room later on that night. It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock on the Thursday night. Players had been and gone for hours. They'd had their lunch and were gone. And I could hear some noise coming from the first team dressing room. So I was wondering, well, that's strange. So I went in, and there was Rav and about 5 or 6 of his mates all taken in the showers and that, getting washed up. And I was like, Rav, what you doing? Where you been? He says, oh, Gaffer, I've just been playing up on the top pitches, the academy pitches with my mates, 2 pots in, 2 goals and then whoever wins. And so he'd been up there running around for 4 or 5 hours. When we've tried to just do the session, he needs to just get rested up. But he didn't think it was anything bad. And I was trying to explain to him, you've got a big game tomorrow night against Middlesbrough. You've been on the grass for 6-7 hours now. And that was just him as a boy, I could have stood there and given him a telling off and said unacceptable. But then when I was thinking about it, when I was speaking to him, I'm thinking, well, at least it keeps him off. Him out the newspaper, so doing dodgy things. So at least I know where he is.
Yeah. What sticks in my mind there is Crystal Palace away. Crystal Palace away when we beat them. Was it 4-0?
What a night. Yeah, 4-0.
Yeah. What a result.
Shane Ferguson free kick.
Yeah.
Rav,
we're on fire that day.
Rav, Nathan Redmond, Shane Ferguson were on fire that night. I mean, They ended up getting promoted that season.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Yeah. It was interesting. I just read Jack Butland's quotes when he went to Palace the other day, and they must ask him, had he had any experiences of Sellers Park, and he brought that game up on the Friday night. We absolutely blew them away. We were outstanding on the night, and it was.
Well, we could have had 6 or 7, couldn't we, that day?
I think that was the period when we had a little bit of a problem with strikers. I think Ziggy was out injured, Marlon King, Peter Lovencrads were all out. We ended up, had a little spell where I played Rav and Nathan Redmond up top, and they were absolutely sensational. I remember going to Ellen Road once, and they were sensational. They just didn't have that natural instinct of scoring. I think they had about 5 one-on-ones in the game, and the combination players they were playing was just... And obviously the team knew they had speed that could go down the sides, but we couldn't play any long balls up to them. So the passing movements that we had, and it was just a shame that
phenomenal that
one of them just didn't have a little bit more of a natural instinct to finish up this, because they were making numerous chances. I loved it. In fact, when the strikers became fit, I was quite tempted to stick with the two of them because I was enjoying watching them play. But obviously, you needed a focal point up there, you know. So
yeah. Going back to Blues days, Lee. I know a lot of people have asked this, but can you just give us your view on what happened with the Big Ziggich? Because I'll be dying to ask you.
Well, nothing. We had a great relationship. It was just I'd come. You know, this had been going on for a few weeks. What Ziggy was that good, and he knew he could be that. When he fancied it and he was up for it, he was unplayable. But when there was days when he wasn't, and this applied on the training ground as well, it became quite frustrating, and it did for the players. But he was a harmless guy. He was. So this had been a continuation of me speaking to him, saying, you know, we need you at it every day. You're a senior pro. You're an example for your own benefit as well, to keep your eye in. And you know, it just and to them before I went out into the media, I called you know, the senior team, the players who I had, is they had their own group that you know, went together and sorted things out for me. So I didn't always have to be in the dressing room. If things were going wrong, they would rectify it. And I asked their opinions, and they were supportive. So when I went out into the media, this wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction. And obviously people will make an assumption that it is because it's the first time I brought it up. But this was over a period of 3, 4, 5 weeks, you know. This wasn't just one training session. And I thought this was the time to do it, but it never affected our relationship. It was funny because it was when he used to come and see me, he would sit down, but I used to have to stand up, so I was on the same sort of height level as him.
There's 3 sides to every story. Yeah,
there's some of the things. There's
the Ziggett side, there's the Lee Clark side, and there's the social media side.
Absolutely. And listen, and Ziggy would tell you that's exactly the same. And you know, he was. Listen, I liked him. There was no problems. I see when his contract ran out and he lived in the same part of the city as me. So I seen him after that when he left the club, and I know then Gary brought him back for a little spell. That's life. That there was no. I never ever made a decision, signed or got rid of a player for personal reasons. I done it whether I thought, you know, we couldn't keep Ziggy at the football club. Every window I was getting advised that we had to move him on, and it just wasn't happening. And do I blame Ziggy for that? Of course I don't. Any man in their right mind getting offered that contract over that period of time, it snapped their hands off, and rightly so. It's the people who were given those contracts out without the clauses in should be held accountable. No, not the player. And because of the predicament we were in, it meant I had to sell the young players I wanted to build the club around, the Jack Butlands and the Nathan Redmonds, and we couldn't get to the level where we wanted to be and make sure they would stay as well. So, you know, inevitably I had to lose the players.
With the money he was on, was there any ever resentment between him? If you say a lot of the other players who'd have been like a fraction of the wages he was there ever any problems as a result of that?
Never. Not that I witnessed. He was very popular. He's popular in the dressing room. After that Bolton game, He delightfully dipped into his wage packet and bought all the beers on the way home. So, but he even then he bought the cheap ones. He didn't even buy the expensive lagers.
Kieran Moore says, "Thank you for bolting away, Lee. Lifetime memory. I watch the video, Blues fans all the time. Keep right on." And Craig Masters says, "What was the message you gave to the players in the dressing room before that Bolton game?"
Just go out and fight and give everything. I didn't say too much, to be honest with you. I said probably more at the end of the game. There'd been enough talking. Sometimes words don't matter, do they? The seriousness and the size of the occasion, everyone knew. I sensed it. So sometimes when you're in a dressing room, you sense things, and you can when you go in as a manager and you just sometimes talk for talking's sake, it doesn't have the right impact. And, I could sense the steeliness. The players were motivated. There was a focus. They knew this was last chance saloon. Do you know what I haven't mentioned as well when we talk about that time? Because I've had lots of questions since about, you must have went out and celebrated that night. I was so mentally and physically drained after that game. I went out for dinner with my family, and we didn't even get to the main course, and I had asked them if we could go home. I was so tired, and I just went straight to home and to sleep, because it physically and mentally it just drained so much out of us.
You know what? Wow.
Not realizing as well. You think you're all right, and you think I'll go out and have a good Saturday night with the family, but
If honestly, I remember I had a Saturday night out for about 10 people, so don't worry about that. There's plenty of people who had a Saturday night out. Plenty of people had a Saturday night out on your behalf.
We just came back in the car, and like I say, me and my mates came back in the car, and we just shattered just watching it. It was just can't put it into words. Like I say, it was like as if we'd won something.
I said before the show started earlier, right? I didn't get a ticket for that game. So I turned my phone off, I turned the TV off, the radios off, computers off, everything turned off, and I actually went to bed because I just couldn't stand the thought of dropping down that division. It was just off the scale. And then I woke up, and my son Luke rang me up. He says, "Did you hear about the game, Dad?" And of course, he'd got no joy in his voice at all. And I said, "Oh no, mate, please don't tell me, please don't tell me." And he says, "Yeah, they went 2-0 up." And I'm like, "Oh, no." And then when he said, and Caddy scored at the end, and we've stayed up, man, I was just like, well, I used to be able to stand on my head as a child. I can't do it now, but I was always and my granddaughter was on the opposite chair, and I'm sitting in the chair here, literally tears running down my face, Lee, tears. And I mean this, I absolutely mean it. And she said, "What's up?" And I said, "It's football. It's Birmingham City. It's football."
Yeah.
So she understands.
Do you know why as well? We talk about who's going into the crowd, because ultimately I've been lucky to have been a player and a manager. But
did you get done for that, by the way?
I'm just a fan. It's hard. I get done for it.
Yeah, did you get done for it?
No, I think if I'd have done anything, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, by the way, with some of the things that they've done in the past. But if they had done us that day, that would have been absolutely ridiculous, wouldn't it? I mean, don't stifle the manager from showing his emotion, whatever you do.
No. I think Paul Caddy's actually said, didn't he? It was the only headed goal he thinks he ever scored at the time. He said it was the first headed goal he'd ever scored.
But somebody asked that question earlier, Paul. When was his last headed goal? And I can't remember one.
Well, you don't score many when you're 5 foot, do you?
Yeah, but he did jump 6 foot in the air to get it.
Listen, I signed Paul later down the line when I was at Bury, and I still keep in touch with him. And great lad. He was probably the only player. David Davis, after we sold Big Tom Adeyemi, they were the only 2 players I was allowed to spend a transfer fee on, because I really wanted Paul Caddis, and we spent a little one through, was it Swindon, to get him? And then obviously David came from Wolves after, because Tom left on the morning of the first game, didn't he, of the new season? So
I'd say David Davis, pound for pound, one of your best signings.
Listen, we got
Lee from Wendy Mills. Wendy Mills says, "Lee, my dad sat in your chair on our tour of the ground. but he said he'd leave the job to you. He's been a Blue Nose for 71 years. Bless him. That's superb, isn't it? Tony, I can't see the name. Sorry, Tony. My laptop. I need a new iPad. I need a new iPad. Yeah, Shane Goff. I remember Lee jumping into a bunch of Peaky Blinders. But again, I was saying, like before the show, it was we have our iconic moments, you know, like the Lane and Daft, the auto windscreens with Tatey with the shirt, the penalty at Norwich against Norwich to take us in the Premier League, the relegations, and that's up there. It's right up there with all those you know, moments that like people can look back on over. I mean, as fans, it's like a career to us as well. Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying, Mark? Do you get what I'm saying?
It's like a contract.
Absolutely.
It's like a career, you know. And everybody knows the old adage: you can change your wife, change your house, change your car. You can never, ever, ever properly change your football team. Not ever, not ever, ever, ever. And Tony Sewell says this is a brilliant listen. Birmingham City, Blackpool and Bury doesn't get much tougher than that, says Craig Masters. No, I'll probably agree with you. Brenda Brown says, tell Lee I struggle to see. Oh God, why is it when you start reading something, it flicks off the screen?
Tell Lee I struggle to see who it was at first.
Thanks.
Sorry, Nick.
No, you're right, Paul. You crack on.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to help you out. Tell Lee I struggle to see who it was at first. His looks has changed, but still very good looking. I think she's trying to say.
Brenda's on the ball. Brenda's on the ball.
Lee, one thing that does stick out for quite a few people, it does get brought up, Stephen, now from time to time. A few games before that Bolton game, we played Blackburn at home, and you made a lot of changes to the team, and the team lineup, should we say, was unconventional looking. And to be honest, even now, I'll be brutally straight. I think obviously the team selection went a bit awry. Do you remember the game? Obviously, we went 4-0 down after about half an hour or so. What was the thinking behind that team selection? Because it's still now, it goes down, not so much in folklore, but as the stuff that people just want to put behind them. It does get brought up for quite a bit.
I don't know. I remember the result. Reminders, I know Taylor Black.
Didn't we have Caddis in midfield?
You had like Howard wide left, and then Lovencrantz, I think, was going through up front. But you basically, you think you came out in the media at the time and said, I wanted to put 5 right-footers and 5 left-footers on, just to give the team a bit of balance. But was there any other particular thinking behind? Because it was a lot of changes from what had happened previously. Obviously backfired pretty quickly that game because we went 4-0 down after 20 minutes. Oh,
it was horrendous. I remember it. Yeah, it was Rudy Gested absolutely murdered with, didn't he? Everything he touched. No, I mean, I think I've tried to. I remember the result. I remember the game because it was horrendous. And what I tried to do as well, leading up to the game, because obviously I was trying everything to try and change the home form. We actually stayed in a hotel overnight in the city centre. Went for a walk around the city centre, tried to get a feel of the support, bumping a few of the supporters, and then obviously that team. Paul. There was a lot of things said about Paul playing midfield, but Paul started off as a central midfield player, and he was just doing lots of good things. And I felt he was probably going to be more beneficial in that role for us at the time.
A lot of energy.
Honestly, I kind of, when you go on about the team, all I can remember about that was Taylor Blackett played centre back, he just had one of those games that was just not one that you remember as a player. And
he had a few.
I can't remember a lot about the rest.
Going back to
can you remember the lineup?
Yeah, you would think I could have a go. It was Randolph. I think it went Randolph, Packwood, Thorpe, Blackett, left back. Callum Riley would have been at left back, I think. Then he went Burke, Caddis, Howard, Lovencrantz, Makeda, and Ibe. That's a guess at it. But I just remember there was a lot of changes because I think Robbo had been sent off the Saturday at Forest, and I think obviously that meant he was suspended. So it just meant there was a lot of changes. But he just obviously that was one that does get brought up now quite a bit as a team selection. And I just wondered if you had any particular thoughts on it.
Hey, listen, since I've become a fan again, I'm an armchair fan. I haven't got managers for changing the team, and but you know, when you're in the firing line and you're not getting results, it's easy. I think it's sometimes easy for fans to say, well, can we not just keep the same team for 5 or 6 games? But if you're there as the manager and you're not getting results and you've got other players, they're thinking, sometimes if you're saying to a player, your chance will come, and then you're not getting a run of results and you don't put him in, he's thinking, one, you're full of BS, and 2, you're never going to get a chance. And when you're not a consistent team, hey, listen, as a manager, you'd love to be picking the same team every week because you're getting results. And if you're on a good run, even if you have the odd blip, you'd obviously continue to pick the same team. Listen, when you're playing for a big club, like Birmingham, you cannot just be a good player. You've got to be a strong character. Because rightly so, there's high expectations, and you know, sometimes some of the players, you know, weren't that. That's why a lot of the time, when there's a lot of the games, I would prefer to go with the younger players from the academy because they were born and bred blue noses. So they had that fighting spirit, and they lacked the experience, and they would be naive, and they might make mistakes. But they had that relationship with you guys on the terraces. You had that relationship going back to them, and it worked for us in so many ways. You know, a lot of them lads, since they've left Birmingham, haven't had brilliant careers, but they played in the Championship for their hometown club. Others have went on and had fantastic. Young Damari's a Premier League winner. You know, obviously not getting his game at Leicester now, but, you know, made himself, you know, a great career. Other players that have done it, obviously Nathan and Jack. You know, and there's been other lads who've had terrific careers. So, you know, that it's as a manager, you'd love to be able to pick the same team most games. You'd love to go through the season and have 7 or 8 players who've played all 46 games without a doubt.
I know it's not your era, Lee, but we had Robbie Savage on a few weeks ago. By the time, I think a lot of our supporters wanted to lynch him, to be honest with you. But by the time he'd explained his side of the situation and his side of the story, because, like I say, there are always 3 sides to every story, he given, and what all he wanted to do, right, was basically, when we're all back as supporters, walk onto the centre circle, turn around and clap every single Birmingham City fan, and within 3 minutes, it was arranged. That was on this show. It was arranged, and. Cut long story short, would you want to come back to Blues and do the same?
Without a doubt. Listen, I don't know the reception.
What a bloke! I think that question came in from Nathan Cartwright. When fans are allowed back, would you visit us and watch us down at St Andrews? Absolutely. Come down for a day. We'll all meet up with you. We'll have a beer. We'll introduce you to the.
I'll come as the fan, and then I'll slag whoever the manager is.
I just hope we're not playing Newcastle in the cup.
Well, I'll slag Brucey off as well because that's my team.
But within minutes, within minutes, I said, "Well, okay, we'll see what we can do for you." And within minutes, Paul Devlin was listening to the show, and he messaged into the show, and within minutes, it was organised and sorted. So Robbie Savage is going to come back and applaud the Blue Noses.
Brilliant. Quick question from me, Lee, if I may. Who's the best player you've ever played with and managed? So 2 separate players, obviously. During your playing career, who was the best player you ever played with? And who was the best player during your managerial career so far that you've ever managed?
Best player I played with, it's down to 2, and probably because he was my hero when I grew up and I was lucky enough to play alongside him, was Peter Beardsley.
What a player. What a player.
Yeah. You're talking about, when they talk about the number 10 role, now they talk about players. He made the number 10 role his own before the number 10 role had been invented. You remember what he'd done for Lineker and that World Cup, but if you look what he used to do for the strikers when I played alongside him, I mean, him and Andy Cole had an unbelievable relationship, you know, phenomenal. He wasn't just a maker of goals for people, though. He could score phenomenal goals. I remember going down to White Hart Lane and we beat Spurs 2-1. He scored 2 identical goals by like being the best player on the school team, just taking on the whole team. But this was Tottenham Hotspur at White Hart Lane, and he was doing it. He didn't just do it once; he'd done it twice. And in Europe when we played, and remember a goal he scored at Norwich when he looked up and looked like he was going to cross. The keeper at Norwich tried to read the cross, so he just hit it with the outside of his foot into the top corner where the keeper had vacated, and it was just And then obviously Alan for what he does, Shearer, I mean, breaking the club record, the Premier League record, scoring all kinds of goals, scoring tap-ins, scoring thunderbolts, headers. I mean, you know, he wasn't the tallest. He was so strong and he was in the air. I mean, I know I've picked me best 1 to 11 for you guys, but when I think when I think about the strikers I've played with, it's difficult because I've left some ridiculous strikers out of that team. Like, and you think, you know, I think I always say it. I was lucky when I think about the strikers I played behind. It's quite easy being a midfielder then, because if I couldn't make goals for them, I was never going to make goals for anyone.
Are you still in touch with them now, like? Still in touch with a lot of the guys?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, the Newcastle lads, Alan and Peter, live close by to us. Coley, I still keep in touch with. Les, through the football world, still keep in touch with. David Kelly, who was one of the first. Mickey Quinn, still see Quinny on the talking circuit.
But just when you see Alan Shearer next, right, just remind him that Ian Bennett was the only goalkeeper to ever save one of his penalties. And who was he playing for?
By the way, there's another link between me and Benno played in the same youth team together at Newcastle, and then I
at Newcastle.
I bet that was interesting.
I signed Benno. He was a great lad. He actually saved 2 penalties in the playoff semi-final when we beat Eddie Howe's Bournemouth. He saved 2 penalties in the first leg. Down at Bournemouth,
for Huddersfield, absolutely.
Yeah, we signed him. Yeah, I had a young goalkeeper called Alex Smithies who was exceptionally good. And I brought Ian. Yeah, I brought Ian Bennett in, and Benno was class. And I knew Benno since I was 16 because we played in the same youth team together. Different class. Brilliant. Great lad.
I always say Benno was probably about 2 inches away from playing in the Premier League, wasn't he? As in his height.
But
he'd just been that little bit taller.
When I was talking about the difference, so Alex Smithies was a brilliant counter-attacking keeper. I would come and take crosses anywhere in his 18-yard box and get us set off. But Ian was obviously, these lack of inches, was a goal line keeper, so he wouldn't come for crosses. But me defenders knew that, so they knew with Alex when he was coming out, they had to get on the line to try and protect in case Alex dropped the cross and someone would get a shot in. So they would do that. But with Ian, they had to go and attack the cross because they knew Ian wasn't coming for it, and it was quite simple for the defenders. They knew with each keeper because each keeper stuck to it. So, like you say, with Ian for his lack of height, he didn't come and complicate the game. So 1 week he wasn't coming for crosses all over, then the next week staying on his line. He would stay on his line and just be a great shot stopper and make tremendous saves and have great presence, great communicator and distribution. And that's a sign of a real top keeper, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Can we welcome, sorry, gents, just 1 second. Can we welcome Steve Portman to the show? Steve listens in every week. Linda said he's late, and he said, "I moved the clocks back a week early."
Oh no!
Absolute quality. Crack on, Paul. Sorry, bud.
I was just going to say, Lynn, the best player you've ever managed so far in your managerial career.
Oh God. Well, as I said, obviously with talent, you've got to look at Rav and what he could have done. But in terms of how consistent he was, I mean, as I said, Paul Robinson was one of my best signings. I mean, when I talk about my time at Huddersfield, some of the lads that I took from lower leagues there and went on to have great careers. Jordan Rhodes, we took from Ipswich for 350,000 and sold him to Blackburn for 12 million. Anthony Pilkington snipped from Stockport for 100,000. We sold him to Norwich in the Premier League while he had a dislocated and broken ankle for 3 million. He would have went for double that if he was fit. So it's difficult to put your finger on it. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have some.
Yeah, sure. Should we get on to your 1 to 11 then? Can we do that now, Nick?
Yeah, just before you do that, Paul, Linda Magda's just sent a message. Full respect to you, Lee. You have all cheered me up from my sick bed. Get well soon, Linda. So 1 to 11, I think.
Yeah, so these are the best players that you played with, aren't they, throughout your career?
Yeah.
Your playing career, obviously.
Yeah.
What we're doing, 4-4-2?
No, I went for a 4-3-1-2 because, as I said, I had all these attacking players and I've had to try and 3 of them in out about the 10 or 12 that I had.
Far away.
Well, number one, I think goes without saying, he's world class. He's won everything in the domestic game, both here in the UK and in Europe. In terms of with Ajax, is Edwin van der Sar. Lucky enough to have 3 great years with him at Fulham. We got him from Juventus. It was a real coup at the time when we got him to come to Fulham.
Yeah, brilliant.
He left back, John Beresford, was very athletic, up and down on the left-hand side, great deliverer of the ball. As I said, really, really athletic, not the biggest, but very competitive. Left-sided centre-half, Chris Coleman, I played alongside and then ended up becoming my manager at Fulham. I actually keep convincing him I got him the job the day I scored the winner against Newcastle when he was interim manager. So my right-sided centre-half was just absolutely awesome in every sense of the word, and was 20 years ahead of his time, because I talk about centre halves wanting to come out and play. Well, no one was better than this guy, Philippe Albert. Absolutely
that goal against Man United.
I was going to say the goal in the World Cup as well against Germany, '94.
Yeah. He was that good. You could play him anywhere. I mean, he scored a goal one day against Manchester City, and he played about 8-1-2s. Going through centre half, centre midfield, centre forward, then just slipped it past the keeper. He was an out and out striker, so he was phenomenal. And a great guy, a real good guy.
The one that sticks in the head is the Man United. Sorry, I was going to say the one that sticks in the head, the chip against Man United.
Yeah.
Did you play in that, Lee? Did you play in that game?
I was involved in that game.
Yeah, great. I remember that.
So right back, obviously, a few options. Barry Venison was a very experienced player, very consistent. Big pal of mine, Steve Watson, who done really well as a right back. Steve Finnan, who I played with at Fulham, went on to win the Champions League at Liverpool. I've gone for our own blue nose and captain of the Carling Cup winning team, Stephen Carr.
Yeah. What a man!
I played with Carsey. I played with Carsey second time round at Newcastle. We're good pals. We're very good mates, and we still keep in touch. We see each other quite regularly. He's living
over
in Sunday. You've got no chance. You've got no chance. Because he just doesn't. He's miserable. He doesn't want to speak to anybody. He's just a pain in the backside. Unless he's taking money off you playing golf. So that's me back four. The middle three is a flat three. Is Robert Lee. And he was an outstanding player. Came as a right winger. Ended up being a central midfield player. And probably
and obviously you managed his son, didn't you? Ollie Lee's son, obviously.
I had Ollie. Ollie's now with Heart of Midlothian doing well. Elliot Lee, the other brother at Luton. So that was Rob was a phenomenal footballer.
Ollie Lee was always someone I felt a bit sorry for, because I think if it was a fair minority, it was a minority, but he used to get a lot of stick because people would say that you were you're only playing in the team because you knew his dad. But actually, I thought he was a half decent player for the time that we had. I thought, and to be fair, he's gone on to prove since then he's done
well. To be honest,
in his career.
Some of the games that because we had a reputation at that time as well. We used to come strong in the last 30 minutes, didn't we? When sometimes you think the game's gone. If you remember the cup tie against Stoke City, I think they were 4-4. Ollie came on that second half, and I know it was Damari's debut, I think, but Ollie was phenomenal in the second half. He got the right on the right foot, because we'd lost Wade Elliott, didn't Wade get sent off? We were man down as well.
Elbow, it was an elbow, wasn't it?
And we played brilliant second half. We they were in the Premier League at the time. We got to 4-4 and unfortunately lost it on pens. And I think Ollie played a massive part in that. To be honest with you, me and Rob had many fallouts about over Ollie. Rob wanted me to pick him, and so there was never that pressure. It was actually the opposite. So I just felt he was a good footballer, and like what we had at the time in the market we were in. He fitted into that criteria because he wasn't costing a lot of money. So, so obviously Rob Lee, I've got David Batty.
Yeah, he was a good player.
David was, a holding midfield player. Probably better player than what people give him credit for at times. I said he was a little bit negative. He had two terrific feet, passing range, brilliant. We got on really well. He was a good guy. Even though me and him were vying for the same role at times, but he was really good. And then on the left, go on.
Am I right in saying David Batty, he absolutely hates football, doesn't he?
Yes.
He absolutely hated the game.
So when he's left, he's never been seen. He's into super bikes, and he's not interested in football one little bit.
Wow.
So on the left of that three, you've got the playboy himself, the Greek god David Ginola.
Oh, what's a player?
What a player, but even those players used to fancy him. No, he came. We didn't know a lot about him when we signed him on Paris Saint-Germain, $2.5 million at the time, and we just this 6'3" winger, built like you know,
Yeah.
Greek god, you know, and fantastic ability, left or right, cross, shoot, just in. And he was that good. The rest of us in the team decided to do an extra bit of work without the ball, because we knew that David's work without the ball wasn't great, but we knew that he'd win with so many games with the ball. We're prepared to do that. And that's how good he was. And there isn't many players you can really say that about, where the rest of the outfield players are prepared to do a bit extra, because then they knew this guy was going to be a match winner for you.
Yeah.
So that's me midfield three. I mean, I think David Batty and Rob Lee have a lot of work to do with David in there, but you know, they have to just knuckle down and crack on. And then me one player in behind the strikers is obviously someone I've spoken about, is Peter Beardsley. Who would, you know, be a maker and scorer of fantastic goals. And behind the front two that I've got, you know, he'd be creating goals every couple of minutes for them. So, and that front two would be obviously Alan Shearer and a big pal of mine, Andy Cole, who, I don't know if you guys know about this, but Andy's record, something like 68, 69 goals in 83 games for Newcastle. It was a phenomenal.
Yeah. He's the third. He's the third highest Premier League goal scorer, isn't he?
Yeah, so he was phenomenal for us, and obviously went on to Manchester United and won many trophies there, you know.
And also as well, Andy Cole didn't used to take penalties either, did he? And he's still the third highest Premier League goal scorer.
Yeah, never took a penalty, Coley. Never took a penalty. So
incredible achievement.
Even more
incredible team. Okay, loads coming in there. Mike Graham says, "Hi guys, quick message to Lee. Wanted to say a massive thank you for your hard work and effort when you were a gaffer. Even though it didn't end great for you, can't thank you enough for the passion and effort you put into our club, especially at Bolton, when you kept us up and ran to the Blues fans. What a moment that was. True passion. Thank you so much, top man. Keep right on."
Class.
Yeah.
There you go. Somebody asked me a question earlier as well. You know, what did you think of our anthem first time you heard it proper?
Yeah, obviously you get to know it and you get to find about the history. You do your due diligence on the club, and you want to know what, you know, the anthem is of the club and what the fans you won't want to sing. And it's there was some, like I said, there was many occasions late on in games where we got results in the anthem came up, and it's very special. That's the stuff you want to try and create on a weekly basis. We unfortunately couldn't do that.
Before he came, Lee. Sorry, Nick.
The Newcastle have an anthem.
Yeah, Local Hero it's called.
Yeah, Dire Straits, isn't it? Mark Knopfler.
Yeah.
I was going to say, before you came to Blues, Lee, did you sort of realise how big Blues were, or what did you know about the club? Did you know about the rivalry with them, like up the road and all the rest of it? You know, what were you? Did it live up to expectations?
Stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, well, listen, you never expect what I walked into in terms of the size of the club and the support and the training facilities. I spoke a lot with Chris when Chris was leaving. I think Chris played a big part in me getting the job. So I sat down with Chris and talked about the group of players, and you know, he did say was, Lee, listen, go in with your eyes open. One of the reasons he was moving on was he knew the financial ground and you know, set wasn't going to be the same as it was. He knew it was going to become more and more difficult after that great season Chris had, you know, in both Europe and getting to the playoffs. But I think that was, you know, when that call came to go and move on, it made it a little bit easier knowing what was coming up. But, you know, there was no way I was going to turn the job down. I just thought, you know, if we could get a little bit of luck. But sometimes when you don't realise the issues until you get really in there, and then you understand what you're coming up against, you know.
We could have told you.
I was going to ask, because obviously you had it at Blues, and then it's possibly even to a worse extent you had it at Blackpool and then Bury. Does the off the pitch stuff actually affect you much in your day-to-day job? How does it affect the players?
Well, in the various different roles, I mean, at Birmingham, towards after about 6-7 months, when I was doing press conferences, it was very rarely about football. It was about the finances of the club. It was about, were we under a transfer embargo? What did the embargo entail? Was there any takeover on the horizon?
You should have done a Brian Clough.
Stuff that I didn't really want to be. Stuff that I didn't really want to be bothered about.
Can you shut up and then ask me the question about the game, young man?
Yeah, and that never happened to be the case, and then it was changing all the time of what we could do in the market and what we couldn't do, and where we were at. That summer after the Bolton game, when I was having to recruit new players, we were easily in the bottom 3 for wages in the Championship at that time. And how I convinced some of the players to come at that time, because they had numerous offers much bigger than what we could give them, was to show them the facilities that we had at Wast Hills and St Andrews, and talk about the size of the crowds that we were getting, even though the club, the fans had suffered for such a long time. So that was a big pull for some of the players that we got there.
We've suffered a lifetime, Lee.
Pardon?
We've suffered for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
That's
Lee,
a football fan for you.
Sorry, Lee, do you remember kissing a lad's head at Bolton after we stayed up?
Kicking a lad's?
We've got a gentleman called Dave Portman listening to the show, and it was his son, Lee. It was his son whose head you kissed at Bolton, and the picture was in the papers the day after. And I'll take my phone round. Remember this? Yeah.
I cannot see it. I can just see your finger.
Yeah, hang on.
Oh yeah, that's him, is it?
That's the geezer's son, apparently.
Yeah. There you go. There's a trip down memory lane for you.
I hope he doesn't put a claim in against us, because I ain't got any money.
Okay, we've had this question come in 3 times now. I was going to ask it. Adam Wilkes wants to know, can you ask Lee about the fit and proper persons test with Berry going to the Dogs and the Carson Young shambles? Chris Brown can't ask me for his mic is broken, apparently.
Yeah, listen, that's the biggest surprise for me all the time when these owners, a lot of them who get into positions of owning football clubs. So I think it's the fit and proper persons test, whatever they've got to do to go through that isn't as robust as it should be, because there's too many. That was one of the saddest things. And I could see that when I left Berry.
I'm sorry. Isn't as robust as it should be. It's as loose as it can be.
Yes,
it really is.
I probably used the wrong wordings. And when I was moving from Berry, I knew that it was a club that was living beyond its means, and there was going to be a big crash. I didn't think that what happened to them eventually was going to happen, but I thought there was going to be issues. And it's so sad, because it's a football club. It's about that community. It doesn't matter how many fans go through the terraces. It's the people's club, and you don't. That's what worries me about this situation now. If there's no help to the EFL clubs,
they've given 10 million today to the lower leagues, haven't they?
All right,
million.
okay.
10 million.
10 million.
That's like a piddle in the toilet for some of these clubs. 10 million, disgraceful.
It's why
anyway,
actually.
Dave Portman's on about his son getting kicked in the head. He just wants you to know, Lee, that it's his most favourite moment in his Blues life so far. That's what we're all about, mate.
I was just about to say, when everyone was whooping and cheering that Project Big Picture got voted down the other week, I was saying the cash that was on offer. I mean, I know there was bits of that plan that people didn't like, but the cash that was on offer, if that dries up now totally, clubs are going to go to the wall. It's I thought it was very short-sighted for people to start whooping and cheering the fact that the actual plan failed, because now in the long run that could kill clubs, and we're talking multiple clubs here.
No, I totally agree. It's either way there was issues with it, wasn't there? I didn't like the way they went and done some kind of secretive meeting. I didn't like the way that was done, cloak and dagger. Everyone should be round the table sorting out the issues. I think that's what's probably got most people's backs up, and it's probably backfired, hasn't it? Like you say, hopefully it doesn't mean that some of these clubs that have been there for many, many years are going to go to the wall, because we've already lost Macclesfield, we've lost Bury. Who's next?
Yeah. And 2 minutes of the show left. Wow. Dave Portman, the dad of the lad who I think who you kicked, says that he's still got your jacket.
And
it's still on the wall in his pride of place.
Great.
Still got his jacket on the wall in pride of place, and it's his best blues moment of his life when the gaffer kicks him in the head. Cracking. That's what the fans are.
This is him.
Mike Hill, thanks for tonight, Lee. Your passion for blues continues and shines through. Top man, always welcome. Wow, this has been an absolute whirlwind of a one tonight. This has been superb. Really, really appreciate you giving your time up. It's a Monday night, and you know what? Yeah, we're all as passionate as you are, Lee. We are, right? We really, really are. We're a very, very passionate club. And what's going on at the moment around the world, we're hating as well as everybody else is hating. And because obviously, everybody's, not everybody, but, we're losing people as well. And so there's nothing we can do apart from just hang in there and wait for all this to somehow go over and we can get back to some kind of football normality. Well, anyway.
Stay safe and healthy. That's what we've got to do, and then get back and watch our football team and get back to supporting them.
I'd like
Can we quickly do predictions for tomorrow? Because you've got Norwich away tomorrow on Sky.
I forgot we were playing.
You're going to watch it?
Yeah, I'll watch it. Obviously, an old club of mine, Norwich, from my time when I was assistant manager there. So a lot of affinity for that club, but hopefully for the Blue Noses to get a result. Just a quick one from myself, and how's Aitor doing? How you getting on? How are the performances? How are the team?
We've definitely improved from where we were at the last time.
We're a lot more structured, aren't we?
Yeah,
we're a lot more structured.
We won't more of an attacking threat.
We won't be going down this season, but to be honest,
I spent a lot of time with me North East connections. I think I was obviously in between jobs when Aitor was the manager when he took Middlesbrough up, so I've seen quite a lot of them that season, and he had them very well organised and drilled, and that they ended up becoming successful. And you could tell early in the season that they were going to be one of them teams that were going to be there or thereabouts.
Yeah. I think we're nick a draw tomorrow. I think 1-1, 1 each.
I'll take that.
I'm going to 1-0 Blues. 1-0 to Blues.
I'll be honest with you, I think we look like we're going to struggle to score goals. I think if they get the first goal, we don't look like scoring many goals. I'll be optimistic. I'll say 1-1, but we like watching us sometimes this season already. It's been like watching paint dry. I mean, we haven't scored a goal from open play. We're going to be solid defensively, but we just don't create much.
No, yeah. We haven't conceded a goal in open play.
People, this is it. It's already 9:01, and I'm afraid we've got to close down right now. It's a shame, Lee, because I think we could have just carried on talking till I don't know, a week next Wednesday. To be perfectly honest with you,
put the clocks back. Hey Nick, put the clock back an hour. We'll start.
What? Do a Portman. You know what? The first proper Blues manager we've had on, in the 10 years that we've been doing this, and this has just been a memorable, cracking show from everybody connected with the Blues. Lee, we wish you all the best in the future. And thank you for that absolute iconic moment. And I'm sure Dave Portman's little one is still happy that he got kicked in the head.
Kicked in the head.
Thanks for having me on.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
For the memories of managing your fantastic club.
Can I ask one quick last question? Can I have one more quick question? Lee, have you got a fish pond?
No. Judging by the rain that's coming down outside Yarrow in the northeast, I might have one in the morning by the time I wake up.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys,
right on.
Talk show sponsored by Boyle Sports and with our good friends SAS Autos, Boys and Labour Club, and of course Garrison Coffee. Lee Clark.
Hey,
cheers, guys.
It's been a pleasure, mate.
Getting excited now. Don't forget, we want to see you back down the Blues one day, mate.
Yeah. You've got
keep in touch because when all this is over, we definitely want to meet up with you.
Send us a text and I'll get myself down. Have a beer for you guys.
Super. Ray Hobro, one of our long-term listeners, wants to know what you thought of the main stand, behind you. Because we've now named it the Ray Hobro main stand after him.
Yeah, they were the one that used to give us pelters. Great. All the best, guys.
Cheers, Lee.
Bye now.
Yeah.
Mr. Kiss.
Yeah, good night, all.
From myself, good night from Mrs. Brown, because he ain't got a microphone. And Lee Clark, your end of message is.
We're so happy.
Not going to work.
Signal gone.
Has he done one?
Not sure. I think he's signaling. Looks like he's froze. I think he's signaling.
What a proper program that was, kid.
That was brilliant.
Superb. Absolutely superb.
The living room is where you make life's most beautiful memories. But your sofa shouldn't be the one remembering them. The new life-resistant, high-performance furniture collection from Ashley is designed to withstand all the spills, slip-ups, and muddy paws that come with the best parts of life. Ashley high-performance sofas and recliners are soft, on-trend, and easy to clean. Shop the high-performance furniture in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.